Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. And it's a pleasure to rise today and to speak on Bill C-57, the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Deal. And I'll be sharing my time with the Honourable Member from Calgary-Nose Hill. First of all, I want to start off by saying unequivocally the Conservatives support Ukraine. I want to say it again because there's been a lot of misinformation from the other side. Conservatives stand with and unequivocally support Ukraine, as we always have. In 1991, it was a Conservative government that was the first Western country to recognize Ukraine's independence. And it was under the Stephen Harper government that the initial Canada-Ukraine free trade agreement was negotiated. And so, you know, we already have a free trade agreement. I think the discussion today needs to be about what should be in the agreement and what should not be in the agreement. Now, I also want to share with the House my personal support for Ukraine. When the war first happened and people were having to flee, this government failed to send planes to rescue them. They created a bureaucratic 2-month process to get your papers to get here. I hired extra staff in my office and worked with local organizations and people that were on the ground in Ukraine to bring 200 families to Sarnia-Lambton, to find sponsor homes for them, to get jobs for them and English training services. So unequivocally, I support Ukraine. But let's look at the Liberal record. Initially, when President Zelensky said, please do not provide this turbine to Russia so that they can fuel and fund their war machine, the Liberals sent the turbine. They allowed Canada to supply detonators for mines that are being used to blow up Ukrainians. How in any way is that support? The Ukrainians have asked Canada for our LNG to replace the Russian fuels that they were using. And Canada refused. That's something that ought to be in this agreement, and it's not. And the Liberals, although they promised the surface-to-air missiles over a year ago, they still haven't been delivered. So clearly, there's a problem in terms of the Liberals listening to what Ukraine is asking for, because none of that is in here. Instead, they decided to put carbon tax language into this agreement. Now, the Conservatives have negotiated, over 50 trade deals. All of the trade deals that have ever been negotiated with Canada have never contained any of that language. And why was it necessary, since Ukraine already has a carbon pricing mechanism on industrial emissions? It's minor. But certainly, Ukrainians who are trying to recover and win a war, the last thing they're going to need is to be put under the same regime that Canadians are suffering under, that has driven up the cost of food, home heating, all of these things. Ukrainians definitely don't need that. And so I want to highlight a couple of other things that are ongoing. Of course, we have always supported the Operation Ukraine to provide aid, but there's more that Canada can do. Ukraine is asking for munitions from Canada, but the Liberals voted against the Conservative motion to send those and are still delaying sending the kinds of munitions that would actually help Ukraine to win this war. I think when you talk about the record of the Liberals, it's just clear that they want to seem to be updating a trade agreement that already exists without actually putting into it the things that the partners would need. I think the real crux of the matter here, Madam Speaker, is that they also refuse to fix the bill. So when the bill went to committee, it was clear from the member from Dufferin-Caledon, he brought numerous amendments that would have helped this act. First of all, we agreed that if they removed the references to carbon pricing and carbon leakage, that the Conservatives would willingly support this agreement. But the government has refused, even though, like I said, Ukraine already has made their decisions about what they're going to do about carbon tax. And so they are a sovereign nation. They have every right to do that. We shouldn't be putting that into a trade agreement. He also brought an amendment that would provide energy trade and nuclear technology like small modular reactors. Now, this is really important. There's an energy crisis and an energy opportunity going on in Europe right now. And every time they come and ask for our help, Canadians who want to help are just surprised to see the Liberals refuse. Germany wanted to give us $58 billion for our LNG. They said there's no business case for that. So Australia took that deal. And the Netherlands wanted to do a deal with us. And we said there's no business case, so Qatar took that deal. Japan wanted to do. I mean, the list goes on and on of opportunities where we've had the wherewithal to really help and have refused, Madam Speaker. And so, you know, all of these amendments that were brought have been turned down. And I don't know why they wouldn't accept one that talks about nuclear technology. That's a very green technology. It should fit in with what the Liberals are proposing to do. The other amendment that they voted against, and this is really troubling, is an amendment to increase defense supplies to donate to Ukraine. Ukraine is running out of munitions, and we have a lot of munitions that are not currently being used across the country that could be repurposed and sent. But the Liberals voted against this amendment, as did the NDP. It's the NDP and the Liberals standing together to not support Ukraine. And so I really don't understand, Madam Speaker, how, you know, they can stand up every day and not know their own record on not giving Ukraine what they need. The other thing that they voted against, another troubling thing, is there was an amendment to have the Business Development Bank of Canada support projects in Ukraine to develop their own munitions manufacturing capacity. I think this is, a concrete way that Canada could have helped. You know, we're already sending billions to everyone in the world. Who needs it more than Ukraine, that's currently at war with Russia, which is a threat to the whole Western world? So I have no idea why the Liberals won't give the Ukrainians what they're asking for. And that is really the discussion that we're having today. We already have a free trade agreement. We're going to continue to do trade with Ukraine. Conservatives are dedicated in supporting Ukraine, but we are not going to force a carbon tax regime to make things worse than they already are. We'll let Ukraine deal with whatever they want to put in place with their sovereignty. But meanwhile, we want to give them what they're asking for. And they're asking for Canada to help with LNG. They're asking Canada to help with munitions. They're asking Canada to help with financial aid to support projects to rebuild their nation. These are the kinds of things that should be in a free trade agreement between Canada and the Ukraine if we want to modernize the one that's already there. But it's not. And we continue to see, in my riding, difficulties that the Ukrainians are having in trying to rescue other people that are coming. As the ravages of war are advancing, there are still people that want to come, and the Liberals haven't made this process any easier. And I think if they really want to help Ukrainians, they should recognize that there's a huge need. There's a need in other areas where we could be of help. You know, we have a lot of armored ambulances, for example, and we're not using them. We've replaced them. But the other ones are still there. They need an oil change, maybe, and a new set of tires. Those are the kinds of things that we could be sending to Ukraine. They're hauling people around in, broken down cars because they've got no ambulances left. So these are the kinds of things, Madam Speaker, that I think we should be thinking about. I see that I'm being called to wrap it up, so I'll wrap it up where I started. Conservatives unconditionally support Ukraine. We stand with Ukraine. That was clear from 1991 when we recognized their independence. It was clear when President Zelensky was here asking for our help, and my colleague Candice Bergen stood in this place and unequivocally said we support Ukraine. The current leader has said we unequivocally support Ukraine. That is the record. That is the correction of the misinformation and disinformation from the members opposite. And Madam Speaker, we need to help Ukraine. Thank you.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Parliament.